Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast, presented by the Fantasy Football World Championship, home to the industry's most accurate rankings.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Adam Krautwurst, and with me, as always, is Jody Smith at Jody Smith NFL on Twitter. Jody, what is up, my friend?
Long day, long busy day. I hosted a Reddit AMA this morning, and I don't know, it was like 180 responses or something like that. I don't know if that counts all my replies, whatever. But that was pretty tedious. But I also had a ton of content, draft kit, all this stuff I've been working on. So been very, very busy. But that's a good time. I mean, this is the good time of year to stay busy.
Listen, isn't there a game on tonight? Like, I feel like there's like a.
It's probably starting right now.
Unfortunately,
I'm so excited about that because somebody tweeted this, but this is the first of we have football every week from now through the end of February, something like that.
Talk dirty to me. Just incredible. I love it.
Hey, we're I don't think you're going, but we're just days away from getting ready for the expo. So
that's right. No, that's always a good time. I'm not able to make it this year. Too much coaching soccer, too much golf going on. But no, it's always
that's good for my high noon budget.
Yeah, that's right. Other thing too is you're a busy guy because you're the number 2 ranker in the entire universe for fantasy football. Again, congrats on that. So listen, you're putting out your rankings, you're doing your draft kit, you're doing all that stuff. We talked last time about running backs and the article that you had put out, which is really great. I encourage everyone to go on the website and check that out about like what goes into running backs leading the NFL in yards, and then kind of what happens when they fall off and how that can affect your team. So that's really good there. But tonight we're here to talk about receivers. But before we do that, I want to encourage everyone to get in these FFWC drafts, play FFWC, get on there. There's drafts all the time. They've still have dynasty drafts going on. Just Superflex Bowl. It's a $50 draft. It's a tournament. Superflex is really, really fun. I love those. You can start 2 quarterbacks. So you got those filling up. We got the Circa Las Vegas Fantasy Championships. Those are going on 4 or 5 nights a week. That's a mid-stakes tournament. You can win a 5-figure prize there. And then we got the World Championships, which are right around the corner here. Slow drafts are happening. Fast drafts are coming up as well. Those drafts will be live out in Vegas too. So get on there, guys. Play Full-Time Fantasy. Jump in the lobby. I think there's like I said, there's Superflex Bowl tonight. So I think you did one of those the other night, right, Jody?
Yep.
Love it. Those are really fun.
Yeah.
But
that was the one we were chatting about where I waited a hair too long to take quarterbacks. So I'll be trotting out a Tua and Aaron Rodgers Superflex lineup.
Listen, those are fun. I mean, listen, I don't want to $50 is $50, but it's a low stakes draft. So I like to get creative with those. I like to push quarterbacks sometimes as far as I can just to see like how many stud running backs and receivers I can get before I'm forced to take QB, and then see how fun it can get. And plus, again, if you do 5 or 6 of them, you can kind of mix and match with the different ways.
There's nothing wrong with that approach and that strategy. I said on the show last week that I really feel like there's 22 to 24 quarterbacks that a really good fantasy manager who's paying attention should be able to win with. Now, it's a little more difficult to do it with 2 of them if you're really flying too close to the sun and you wait too long in Superflex. But in a standard 1 QB league, you should, in theory, be able to trot out a Matt Stafford and win a lineup, especially if, hey, look, we're all projecting Puka to be a top 5 wide receiver and Devontae Adams to be right there on the wide receiver 1-2 borderline. So if we're taking a quarterback like Matt Stafford and we're projecting 2 really, really good starters, well, he ought to have, you would think he's going to have decent stats, right? So
for sure. The other thing is the thing I like about Superflex drafts is, especially this time of year, it's starting to get into like real draft season, but drafts can get stale, right? There's no training camp, there's no news, there's no injuries, all that stuff. Drafts kind of get stale. Superflex drafts, man, they're crazy. Like the one I was in the other night, the first 5 picks were quarterbacks, but then you might do another one and you might get like 2 quarterbacks, a couple receivers, a running back, and then the drafts vary. They're very, very different. So that's what makes it fun too. Is a lot of the drafts can become stale in July before you get into like August. So that's another reason why I like to do the super flexible. But enough about quarterbacks. We're here to talk about receivers. And listen, receivers are a big point of big chat point, big talking point at the FFWC because you have to start 3 receivers. You can start up to 5 receivers. So kind of picking and choosing your spots at receiver, who to target, who to fade is kind of a big deal over there. But do you have like tiers of receiver? Like who's your top tier of receiver? Is it Chase at number 1? Do you lump a couple more in there with him? Who do you got kind of the top echelon for your receivers, Jody?
Yeah, it's hard not to rank Chase as your wide receiver 1. And to me, even with the slight injury concern, Justin Jefferson's almost in a tier by himself there at 2. After that, it's where it gets, a little creative because I think most people lean CD Lamb at 3. I don't know. I mean, to me, he's only been higher than wide receiver 4 or 5 overall. I think that one year where he was wide receiver 1 overall.
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Puka Nacua is the guy you could argue up there. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown has been wide receiver 3 the last 2 consecutive years, but I think we're all kind of projecting a little, not a decline necessarily, but I mean, with the volume with Ben Johnson being gone, I mean, we don't know, that role is going to stay the same. So you can get creative, you could take some shots with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, both second-year wide receivers who were awesome as rookies. And those are the guys that are typically, in the bottom of round 1. And, while we're on the wide receiver topic, it feels like early on here in drafts, Adam, this is maybe what you're seeing, but we happen to be a very recency bias based people, especially us people that have been drafting for months and all that. We're forgetting that last year was kind of unusual in the sense that the upper echelon running backs by and large stayed healthy. So they ended up having these dominant seasons last year. And then there were some receiver issues. Malik Neighbors missed 3 games. Nico Collins missed time. These elite wide receivers instead were, a little more banged up than they usually are, and the running back stayed healthy. So now we're seeing, I want to say last year that in mock drafts of the first round that receivers were 7 or 8 of the spots by and large. And then now this year you're seeing more running backs sneak in there because like I said, we're all just reacting to what we saw last year. And I think that number may actually grow here as more casual people get involved here now that, starting tomorrow, it's August. So I think it really sets up nicely for value for people that want to attack wide receiver early. In my AMA earlier today, a lot of people were asking questions about drafting from the back end of round 1. Must be a lot of people, I'm guessing people that were successful made their playoffs last year, so they're drafting late. If they're in Reddit asking a ton of AMA questions in July, they're probably, pretty serious about fantasy football. So it tells me they're probably pretty smart, pretty good at what they're doing. So, but what I kept telling people was my dream scenario from late would be to start Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas. Very difficult to do, but somehow if you get lucky and you're in that 9 to 11 range and that's the way it plays out, I would absolutely love that. And, I guess, perfect scenario if you were to have that start and then have Chase Brown fall to you in round 3 and maybe even George Kittle is one of the options in round 4. Like, to me, that's like a really awesome start.
Yeah, I could dig so deep into this, right? So, receivers crazy this season. I think if you're picking anywhere from like 8 to 12, you're going to be ecstatic with your second round pick, right? You're going to be able to get, if you like receivers, like you said, you could get Nico Collins and Brian Thomas with your first 2 picks in most leagues. To your point about the running backs and people drafting and stuff like that. So last year it was like 9 to 10 receivers were being taken in the first round. And I think with the recency bias, you're getting running backs pushed up. Running backs didn't get as hurt last year. And here's another thing, Jody, that people forget about drafting receiver early. Yes, they generally get injured less than running backs do. But if the quarterback gets injured, you might as well the receiver might as well be hurt, right? Think Dak Prescott for CeeDee Lamb. Think Tua for Tyreek Hill. Like if their quarterback goes down, they're screwed. So yes, quarterbacks don't get hurt as much as running backs. Receivers don't get hurt as much as running backs, but it's almost even when you include the quarterback and the receiver getting hurt, which affects the receiver. So it's almost equal there. But running backs definitely got hurt less. But that also almost makes you feel like, well, we're due to get back to the norm where running backs get hurt more or get hurt back on the normal average. Again, we're not rooting for injury.
Let's not curse them. Let's just say wide receivers stay healthier to get back to norm.
More than that, for sure. So, yeah. So, anyways, it's a great year to get receivers because the running backs have been pushed up, right? So Christian McCaffrey goes at like the 9 spot. Right. So that pushes down Amon-Ra. That pushes down Brian Thomas. That pushes down A.J. Brown. All that type of stuff. So it's a really good year to go get receiver. I do want to push back a little bit on you we talked about the top tier of receivers. I have CeeDee Lamb as my number 2 receiver. CeeDee Lamb could get the Cowboys could throw 100 more times. And you're the projections guy. You're the number 2 guy in the world. So I guess I'd like to see where you have projections wise for this. But the Cowboys could throw 100 more times than the Minnesota Vikings could. CeeDee Lamb could see, 20 to 30 more targets than Justin Jefferson could. And I feel like him coming off that wide receiver 1 season, 2 years ago, Justin Jefferson's a better receiver. Don't get me wrong. But I think the Cowboys, and you're down there into Texas, the Cowboys, I think, are going to throw a ton. They don't care about running backs because they don't have any. And their offensive line, the interior of that line is really good, which is going to hold up for Dak Prescott to hold the ball a little bit longer. So talk to me, on why maybe you don't have Lamb in that same tier as Jefferson.
I just think that overall, I think Jefferson's I'm big on JJ McCarthy. I love JJ McCarthy. I love JJ McCarthy. Last year, that offense there in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell has finished 5th or 6th for the last 4 years in a row in passing. With Dallas, it depends on George Pickens. It sounds like George Pickens is going to play a huge role in that offense. So is that going to, and this could go, a number of different directions. One direction is, could he himself warrant 100 plus targets? I think a lot of us are starting to lean that way. I think I moved him up in my most recent rankings update. He's up around wide receiver 25 now, which is pretty high. That's, at that range, you're expecting 120-ish targets. Now, how many attempts is Dallas going to have to do if Pickens is 120 plus targets? If CeeDee Lamb, Adam, is going to finish top 2, top 3, then he's himself is going to need 140, 150 targets. Not unreasonable to expect, but we have Jake Ferguson, and then after that, of course, the Cowboys fall off. Much like last year, there's not a lot back there behind there. I think in my projections that let me pull them up here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Lamb is wide receiver 3 in our projections, but in my personal rankings, I just have him at a
little bit lower. Yeah.
No,
I totally get it. I just think
it's just a personal thing. I had a friend of mine reach out in the league, and he was saying that he was, assuredly protecting CeeDee Lamb, and it's a touchdown only league. Let's go back to my old school league. And I'm like, okay, well, who's your other option? And he said, Ken Walker. I said, well, why are you not thinking of Walker? And he just talked about how great CeeDee Lamb is. I said, yeah, great. But I mean, in his career, he's only surpassed 8 touchdowns, one time, I think. So, in your format, I mean, are you happy that the guy you're keeping has 9 touchdowns? And he said, no. I said, well, okay, well, he's only surpassed that number once in his career. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Now that's not applicable to more than a handful of us Gen X guys that are still playing antiquated leagues like that. But I mean, look, there's no wrong answer to me with these guys. I mean,
we're nitpicking. Yeah, we're nitpicking for sure. I love the safety of Lamb because Lamb is going to go inside into the slot. Pickens is not going to. So I just think he's going to, you know what happens when they put those guys in the slot, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua,
hey, you know what? Opposition having to account for George Pickens' top end speed and all that could free up CD Lamb to reach that 160 plus target range and be right there as wide receiver one. It's perfectly within the realm of outcomes, of course.
For sure. All right. Next group of receivers, Puka. I'm just gonna kind of rattle some off here. Puka, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas. Again, super happy to get any of those guys in the middle of the back half of round one. I think that, guys like me, like I'm high stakes, high volume drafting. So I'm just kind of mix it in here and there. I've been taking Puka. It's kind of been my guy. Like if I was going to do one draft, I would take Puka, but you do have that injury risk with him for sure. And also a little bit more target competition with Devontae Adams there, but he's proven he can crush with Cooper Kupp. Matt Stafford can support two receivers. So Malik Neighbors could lead the league in targets. Nico Collins has been awesome for 2 years, and Brian Thomas. Again, people are worried about Brian Thomas. Maybe they've got maybe some target competition there with the rookie receiver there. But they lose Evan Ingram, they lose a couple of other guys, Christian Kirk, all that type of stuff. I think he'll be the main target hog there as well. Is it kind of nitpicking to kind of pick through these guys too, or do you kind of have a guy that stands above the rest?
No, in the grouping you brought up, Puka might have the highest floor of all of them because we just know that the volume is going to be there, and it doesn't seem to matter. But that said, I don't know that he's got the touchdown ceiling, especially with Devontae Adams there, that the other guys do. Malik Neighbors is the guy. We talked about it just a minute ago when I said that I wanted to be in a situation where I could somehow get lucky and get into him and Brian Thomas at the end of round one. It's because look what we saw out of Malik Neighbors. We were just talking about injuries and quarterback situation. He overcame both last year, missed most of fourth game, still second in the league, 170 targets with absolute garbage at quarterback last year. The dude is a complete freak. And, Russell Wilson, say what you want about him, how he's past his prime or whatever, but he's significantly better than what New York had last year. You're pretty much bringing back the entire crew except for bringing in Cam Scottaboo at running back. So you're going to have the same coaching system in place. Offensive line should be a little bit better. Just overall, he's just the elite talent that I want to get my hands on. I think he's got wide receiver one overall upside. I mean, it's not like a hot take to even say that, but who's the other guys in this grouping here?
I said Puka and
Thomas. Again, to me, it comes down to after Trevor Lawrence got hurt last year, it was Mac Jones is really responsible for just going out there and YOLOing up to Brian Thomas. Hell, the coaching staff might have been like, hey, that worked pretty well. Let's go that route. And you mentioned Travis Hunter. Trevor Lawrence throughout his career has been a better fantasy quarterback, I think, than a real NFL quarterback, but he hasn't really had a lot of experience supporting multiple wide receivers. He's more of a guy that it leans more towards him being able to support Brian Thomas. And what we're seeing so far out of Hunter is he's playing, quite a bit of his practice reps have come on a defensive side of the ball. And somebody brought up a really interesting point the other day, and they said, with Travis Hunter, what happens when the Jaguars are down a corner, one of their starting quarterbacks is injured, he's out multiple weeks, he's out for the year, or both of their cornerbacks are banged up. At that point, they're going to need him to kind of shift over and play on that side of the ball a little bit more often. So Travis Hunter comes with plenty of risk himself. So overall, I think he is an elite talent.
Yeah.
But
my thing with Brian Thomas is Liam Cohen, man. Cohen comes over. I mean, he, under Tampa, right? third in passing yards, sixth in yards per attempt, second in passing touchdowns for that offense over there. I mean, is he as good as Baker Mayfield? I mean, I think Cohen's going to get the most out of that of that offense, and I think that those two guys are both going to pay on their value on where their ADP is going. I just trust kind of, everyone's talking about the changing in Detroit with the coaching and stuff like that. I think this is a huge one as well. I think Jacksonville's going to take that leap, and and you could make a case for any of those four guys to finish as the wide receiver one: Puka, Malik, Nico, or Brian Thomas. And so I think they're all wonderful, safe floor, safe ceiling guys for sure. One guy kind of on the outside looking in this year, a guy that's kind of been up there for the last couple of years, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Speaking of the Lions, there's just a lot of question marks, right? They lose their offensive coordinator to Chicago as the head coach. You've got what's the new scheme going to do? The offensive line is a little bit weaker. What is Goff going to look like with the new offensive coordinator? Where's the ball going to go? Is Laporta going to get more involved? You got Jameson Williams stepping up. Gibbs might get more involved or stay as involved in the passing game. Maybe the floor is high for Amon-Ra, right? But is the ceiling? Can the ceiling get him up there with those Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins guys, Jody?
I don't see him being able to have a third consecutive season as the wide receiver 3 overall for the reasons you mentioned. Another one to keep in mind is that the Lions lost their center, Frank Ragnow. That's actually a bigger deal than people might say. So losing Ben Johnson, you can go either way. John Morton was on the staff over there. It seems to know what he's doing. It's been really interesting so far. It sounds like coming out of camp that the Lions have been spending a lot of time with flexing Jamar Gibbs in the slot, even out wide, and the same thing with Jameson Williams. Rather than utilizing him only from the perimeter, they're trying to get him the ball shorter, closer to the line of scrimmage, which is really interesting. It's a good idea. I mean, my projections for Jameson Williams, keep going up too. So, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, love him as a player, but he's starting to. It's becoming pretty definitive, like in my tier, to the guys we've already hit on. Puka just has, a significantly higher floor than most of the other guys, but it's the upside, the ceiling that Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors have already shown us, the touchdown potential that both of them have, that I've comfortably have them all, ranked ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's nothing wrong with him as an option. It's just that I feel like he needs to be probably in that. All those guys can't go in the first round. And like I said, I expect another running back or two, maybe even to trickle up into ADP here as more casual people get involved. So you're going to see at least two of the guys we've talked about slide into round 2. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is still, what's his ADP? I don't know, 10, 11, 9, somewhere in that range right now. He'll probably start sliding over there. And that, to me, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think his ADP is actually like around 12. And so he's normally a guy you can consistently, double tap receiver and then go grab Amon-Ra. And you said it perfectly. There's nothing wrong with it.
Another point I forgot to bring up.
Safe floor.
So the Lions this year, another thing to walk about, you talked about Goff. It's known his home and road splits, his
outdoor
thing. They've got more outdoor games this year. So, I mean, let's not overreact, but these are things to consider. If it's on the board and you're really close and Brian Thomas is out there and so is Amon-Ra St. Brown, you may look at last year's numbers and be like, well, this Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's been wide receiver 3 2 years in a row. I'll go with him. He's safer. Well, I don't know. In that option, I think I'd rather go with the upside and Thomas.
Yeah. I think I'm for an example, and I don't want to talk about every single receiver, but AJ Brown, who goes like right after him. The Eagles averaged, I think it was 26 pass attempts a game last year. Like if they have to play in any type of shootout, like AJ Brown has a much higher ceiling than Amon-Ra does. And so I would rather have a guy like that than a guy like Amon-Ra, who's basically peaked. He's maxed out. Like they're always throwing the ball, that type of thing. So Give
Yeah,
me
the
AJ Brown.
Eagles, even with the limited pass attempts, still from a fantasy points per game perspective, they still supported 2 top 16 wide receivers in Brown and Devontae Smith and fantasy points per game.
Crazy. And that's another reason why Jalen Hurts can't be MVP. You can't throw the ball 26 times a game as the quarterback and have elite weapons everywhere and be the MVP. Jerry wants to talk about, he says, one of the most overdrafted player right now is Ladd McConkey, kind of in our next tier here. I don't disagree with him. I think he has the number one receiver in a very run heavy offense. What do you think about, again, he's kind of like the next level, the next tier down, like Amon-Ra, right? Like kind of safe, but like I think he lacks that severe upside in that rushing kind of attack there. What do you think, Jody?
So Ladd McConkey, that was another popular topic on the AMA today. People were like, how do you rank him or where does he go? And I kept saying, I think he's appropriately ranked because Adam, the 10 guys and 10 or 11 guys in front of him, who do you move down? Are you taking Ladd McConkey over Drake London?
No.
Definitely not over Nico, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, none of those guys.
No.
So then if you're not taking him over AJ Brown or Drake London, okay, well that's 10. So he's capped out. He's peaked at wide receiver 11. Then it comes down to the next group. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, all these guys. Those are the guys you'd have to pass on in order to get him. So, like I said, I think he's appropriate. I think he probably, what we saw at him last year from a usage standpoint, is about what we expect. So, in that offense that wants to establish the run, that just spent money on Najee Harris, just used their first round pick, which they didn't necessarily even need to, but they went ahead and did it on Amarian Hampton. This is a team that wants to establish that. They want to be a defensive, establish the run type of offense, and that's what they're going to be. And Ladd McConkey's clearly their number one, but like I said, I don't see a path to him getting into the highest I could see him going is wide receiver 11, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a wide receiver 1, but I think his floor is pretty high, but
that's what I'm saying.
I don't see a path to top 10 numbers for him.
Do you know what I do in that point in the draft, Jody? You talk about passing and what receiver this and there. Just take Brock Bowers. Just take Brock Bowers, and then you've got a game changer at tight end, and you don't have to worry about it.
I've got Trey McBride as my tight end 1, and I hear what you're saying, but I can say this: I always hate my teams when I do that. When I take one of the few elite tight ends, I always end up scratching my head like, what went wrong here?
Nothing.
I'm making the top of the I'm okay with George Kittle in round 4 because to me, you're getting almost the same player as Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, but you're getting a 2-round discount if he's there in round 4. That's why I guess I'm okay with that, but I'm also starting to warm up to the idea of taking the God tier, as friend of the show Billy Muzio once called them, the God tier of quarterbacks. I'm starting to warm up to the idea of taking them in the mid to late 3rd round. So,
that's where you went wrong. Well, not where you went wrong, but like it's really difficult to do in non-tight end premium. It's really difficult to go early tight end and early quarterback and look at your roster.
No, you can't do both.
Right. So I think if you go with a Brock Bowers, you really got to wait on QB, or if you go with a QB early, you really got to wait on tight.
Yeah. So with Brock Bowers, I mean, it'd be easy to pair him with Geno Smith if you want to go that route. And I think Geno Smith actually he's a nice value. Everyone's got him outside their top 20, and he's proven over the last 3 years in a worse situation that he can be better than that. And, with McBride, it's fairly easy to pair him with Kyler Murray too. So, I mean, if you want to build a different type of stack, it's always, it's a little easier to do it from that position than it might be from wide receiver. Cause we keep talking about Malik Neighbors, but nobody's building stacks with Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors. If you are, maybe in a super flex and you take Wilson as your QB2 if you wait till the end, but building a single QB stack lineup with Malik Neighbors and Russell Wilson. It's a little bit too risky for me.
For sure. Let's talk about the chat here. Wants to talk about Rashee Rice. He's an interesting character, an interesting guy to talk about because, I mean, I think he's still going too high. I mean, I don't think people realize he could be suspended like I think it's at least 4 games. It could be up to 6 games, maybe even more. Like, I'm not he was a guy. Sometimes, each draft season is its own animal, right? Every year stuff happens. There's guys you target that you can never get and they go off and it crushes you. There's guys that you don't really like, but you get too much of them, but they go off and you win. Rashee Rice is a guy that I've been targeting all spring. Every draft he goes right in front of me. Just like he's like the Jahmyr Gibbs, the first. I can never get Jahmyr Gibbs. If I'm drafting second, he goes first. If I'm drafting third, he goes second. Rashee Rice always went to pick in front of me because all these psychopaths at the FFWC know that I want him. And now I'm ecstatic that all these losers who wanted to snipe me every draft are stuck with Rashee Rice now. But I wanted him too, so don't feel bad. So happy I don't have him now. What are we doing with him? I mean, he's still going in like the late third, mid fourth, like in these FFWC, in these tournaments. Jody, if he's suspended 4 games plus the bye week, that's almost half of your regular season.
Well, I think that's probably the best case scenario.
Right.
4 games. It could, like you said, it could be more. In my projections, I accounted for 5 games because I think the low of 4, the high of 6, maybe Goodell tries to give him 8 and the players union gets involved and they narrow it down to, 4 to 6. So 5 is the number I'm going with, and that dips him out of wide receiver 30 range. Cause like you said, 5 games plus a bye week, that's 6. So that's more than a third of your season that and you're wasting it on a roster spot. Maybe in your league you can move a guy with an S next to his name into your IR spot. I don't agree with that if you can, by the way, but it's just, such a headache. And the thing is, he's such, we knew from a usage standpoint how awesome he's going to be. I think he was wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy points per game last season. And then, we saw a little bit of Xavier Worthy kind of start to take on that role, which, made him more of an interesting option. But I like everybody else, I love the talent of Rice. And this whole suspension thing, we've heard all off season and all throughout our first 3 or 4 months of drafting how this, got tabled until next year and all that. So for it to come out of nowhere, and it's a shame because, like I said, a lot of us, Adam, who did profiles, wrote for magazines and whatnot. Well, we had, that stuff was due in June, so we had to go push forward. Like,
right.
We just assumed that this wasn't going to happen, and same thing for us that were drafting early. But lesson learned. The vast majority of people haven't drafted yet, and just now, coming around. So I think you'll start to see him trickle down, a little bit further. And I'm hoping that we have some sort of definitive word here in the next few weeks. But maybe we need to ask Drew Davenport, when we can expect some sort of timeline on that.
The expert for sure, and kind of in the same vein with the Chiefs, Xavier Worthy is a guy that I think is being like underdrafted, considering like he's still going. He hasn't really gone up much on his ADP, and he's a guy that not only could hugely benefit from Rashee Rice being out, but from all the camp reports that I'm seeing, and even the video, like he's running real routes. Like he ran like a double move today at the goal line, scored a fade route, scored. I mean, he's a guy that if Mahomes just targets in on him, I mean, Rashee Rice was a top 5 fantasy receiver the first 7 weeks of the year before he got hurt. Like I'm not expecting that for Xavier Worthy, but Worthy's being drafted, late 20s as a receiver. He could certainly be a top 15 receiver while Rashee Rice is out. Where are you on Worthy?
Yeah, after adjusting things here, let me see. Where did I move up Worthy to? He's 26 in my rankings now. I'm still a little cautious of him simply because of the lack of consistent volume he had last year. And that so much of his production came in the rushing area, and it's a little hard. That's a little hard to project from season to season. I don't see him from what we saw in his rookie campaign. It's hard to see him being able to do the same things Rashee Rice does more consistently. He's a guy, I have some interest in, like in a dynasty league. I took him in the first round reluctantly last year, and it worked out okay. It was an interesting team because I had 3 first-round picks because I had to blow it up, and I entered that draft with 0 quarterbacks, and I walked out with my 3 firsts were Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Xavier Worthy. So that team went from 0 to hero pretty fast, especially with the 2 quarterbacks.
For sure. Yeah. It's just interesting there with kind of what to do there. Again, in a lot of these tournaments, you want to peak at the end of the year. So the end of the year is worth more than the beginning of the year. So, the Worthy thing, I think, having him crush for the first half and then kind of fade off second half isn't ideal. But again, you just don't know what's going to happen with that Rashee Rice situation. Question in the chat from Jerry. Tet McMillan, what to do with Tet McMillan? I like him. I liked him as a prospect. I feel like he's a big receiver, but plays quicker than his size, I think, from what I can kind of see of him. Dave Canales there, great for the offense. Bryce Young really had a great last quarter of the year, and from all signs he's been great in training camp. And I think their defense stinks. The defenses in the division stink. And so you're going to get, I think, some shootouts in these games. And I think Tet McMillan is a guy that you want to be a slightly overweight on him and, maybe not expect a ton of up front, but come on, like I was saying, in the second half of the year when all the money's on the line. Where are you on Tet McMillan?
I'm below consensus on Tet McMillan, and I'll tell you why. But first off, love him as a talent. Thought he was awesome in college. The last 2 years, he's been great. He checks all the boxes to be a Mike Evans type impact receiver. He's got size.
Dave Canales had him too in Tampa. Yep.
They know what they're doing over there. My concerns with Carolina are actually Bryce Young. He was so miserable to start the season that he got benched, right?
I know.
He sat behind Andy Dalton, and it feels like that was the right decision all around. He took it. What I loved about Bryce Young was that after he got benched, he was a team-first guy, clapping, supporting Andy Dalton. He was doing everything right, everything you like to see when a lot of guys would have sulked and made it about themselves and taken it the wrong way. But it feels like first off, quarterback's extraordinarily deep. I have trouble getting Bryce Young anywhere near my top 20. And it's when you look at, we talk about how
rushing upside
how great he played down the stretch. Well, 6 of his touchdowns came on the ground. That's hard to project. Now, Bryce Young's, he's a good runner. He's decent, but he's not the kind of guy that I think is going to run 400 or 500 yards and be able to consistently score 4, 5, 6 rushing touchdowns. So he's going to have to rely more on a pass. Well, 0 300-yard games last year. He had 3 games in that stretch after he reclaimed the starting role. 3 games with over 250 yards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games, or 6 straight games with just 1 touchdown pass before he finally, in the last, he started getting multiple touchdowns there at the end. And we had that one bonkers game in week 18 when there was nothing on the line for the Panthers or Falcons. So it was a 44-38 overtime, So a big percentage of his numbers came in that. So while I love Tet McMillan as a prospect, like I said, my concerns are with Bryce Young. He's going to have to show me before I'm willing to go all in. Coaching staff, by all indications, he's playing well. Like you mentioned that. I'm going to need to see it myself. And so while I have, Bryce Young as a, maybe as high as QB 22, 23 range, but it's going to be hard for him to support, a top 20, top 25 wide receiver at that range. Not impossible, of course, because we say that happen all the time, but I think because of us remembering how how much better Bryce Young was down the stretch last year. We're all thinking that all that momentum is going to carry over, and he's going to be, a lot of people are taking him, top 18, top 16 range. And to me, I got to see it first.
Yeah, I think I think he's going like the fourth round at the earliest of a lot of these drafts. I think he's going like his, late 20s receiver. I think, again,
I'll be below that. I mean, he is still trickling up, and we're seeing reports of he's making a hell of a lot of plays, and he's looking great, which I love to see. So, it's going to cause his ADP to, maybe go up another spot or two. He may get, he maybe even been top 25, and banking on a rookie wideout to post top 20 numbers is a good bet because it happens almost every year. But again, my concerns are less with Tet and more with Bryce Young. I need to see it first, and I'm willing to. We can circle back, next year and be like, hey, you remember you said you need to see it from Bryce Young? Well, then I'll be willing to say, hey, kid, proved me wrong.
That's right. There you go. All right. So before we close here, let's talk about some guys that we are maybe higher on than consensus or lower on than consensus. And I guess I'll start here, give you a chance to find your guy. But a guy that I am higher on, a guy that I find I can get him whenever I want in any draft, that is Jacoby Myers for the Raiders. Excuse me. Chip Kelly coming in, fastest offense on the planet. Defense that's not good, going to be in shootouts in the AFC West, was really good last year. No real receiver competition other than Brock Bowers there. And I think, Geno upgraded quarterback, fast offense, bad defense. Like, that's the stuff that I want. And I'm able to get him, was wide receiver 41, 42, 45 in a lot of these drafts. And to me, I think he's a really great wide receiver 3 for your team that you can draft as like a wide receiver 4 or 5. So what do you think about Jacoby Myers?
Yep, agree with everything you said. He was on my short list of people to bring up. Was wide receiver 24 in 2023. He was wide receiver 20 in PPR last year, and somehow, even though every element of the Raiders got better, quarterback, coaching, the play calling, the running back, everything's better. Somehow his ADP
massive drop,
double where he finished last year. Now, do I think he has a path to wide receiver 20 again? Probably not. But
still,
he's still a really good value. He's my wide receiver 32, 33 right now. And I figured that's actually kind of conservatively ranked. And that puts him pretty significantly higher than his ADP, which you said is like 40, 41. So great choice. To me, that part of the draft right now is really interesting. The 5th, 6th round, you're looking at your wide receiver 3, Calvin Ridley. That's a guy really interested in. Was, again, top 30, top 25 last year with complete garbage at quarterback. Now, number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward back there. By all indications, he's looked pretty good. Calvin Ridley, clearly the wide receiver 1 on offense. Plenty of fantasy-friendly game scripts. And Calvin Ridley is down there close to – he's a little bit ahead of Jacoby Myers on ADP boards. But to me, he finished, wide receiver, 27 last year in that situation, 120 targets, and he only caught 64 of them. Well, giving 120 targets, let's just say that's bottom for him. And with a much improved quarterback, he's going to catch 75 or 80 of those minimum, and boom, that puts him right there. And remember, last year, only caught 64 of those 120 targets for 1,017 yards and only 4 touchdowns. He ran for a 5th, but to me, that was like bottom barrel numbers for him. So I think Ridley's a pretty good path to top 20 numbers this year.
Yeah, and his numbers, his splits last year with and without Hopkins, like he was like really good when he was like by himself there. The last couple of years without a number 1 across from him. So I think that's gonna be really good for him. And Cam Ward he's like the most under talked about like first overall quarterback like in forever. Like I think he's we're not talking quarterbacks, but he's super undervalued to me, I think. Too, maybe not for fantasy. I gotta see how much rushing he's gonna do, but I think for real life, like the whole offense is just gonna be I think so much better for sure with him in there. All right, a guy that I think I'm a little bit lower on than most people, and that's JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I just think, he's going super high. Like, you got to spend like a late second round pick on the guy. He's coming off a career year. I like the talent. I just their offensive line isn't good. Sam Darnold, I don't think is good right now. So he goes to Minnesota, right? Where like you said, the coaching staff in Minnesota is incredible. Like, everyone that they have there, they turn into a superstar. And I think the coaching is just so much better there, at least for the passing game in Minnesota. You saw what happened previously to that for Darnold, where he didn't have time to throw. He was terrible in that playoff game, or the last game. He doesn't have time to throw. They get destroyed. He looks awful. We thought cost himself tens of millions of dollars. Still ends up getting paid. Comes to Seattle, and I just think that with their line being bad, I don't think, kind of like your point about the Panthers and Bryce Young, I don't know if he can get JSN to a top 12, top 13 fantasy finish. So I find myself never clicking his name at the 2 or 3 turn. I mean, there are so many guys that I would rather have. I'd rather have Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, over JSN. I just don't think he's going to get the quality targets. You got weather issues up there late in the year, and I don't think he's like this alpha, can't stop him receiver. He's like a Amon-Ra in the slot. He's like a poor man's Amon-Ra kind of. So I don't know. What do you think about? I don't think we've talked much about JSN.
No, talent wise, love the guy, but here's the thing. So, do you know anyone that has Sam Darnold as a top 20, top 22 quarterback? No, we all have him at like 24, 27 range, whatever. So, okay. So we're not anticipating elite production or, the ability to easily support a top 10 receiver. That said, obviously Malik Neighbors last year, total sheer volume, was able to be a top 5, top 10 fantasy wide receiver with garbage at quarterback. But here's the thing. Cooper Kupp, dominance out of the slot. JSN was dominant out of the slot last year. What are we doing? I mean, so far it looks like they're both kind of intermingling and all that, but is Cooper Kupp done? If that's the case, he's probably better utilized in the slot, which would force Jackson Smith and Jigba to be more on a perimeter. Overall, I like him fine as a talent, but I won't fault you. It feels like those other receivers you mentioned, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, all these guys in that range, I don't know, that feels like the kind of thing where instead of loading up on one guy that I really like, I'll just, depending on what draft it is, I would just change it up.
And if you don't like the receivers, you could always go Brock Bowers. No, I'm just kidding. Trey McBride, whatever, right. For sure. Who's the guy that you're kind of lower on consensus there, Jody?
I'm a little bit lower right now on Garrett Wilson just because I doubt Justin Fields' ability to support the kind of volume that we've seen out of Garrett Wilson. Only once in his career has Justin Fields supported a wide receiver, and that was DJ Moore. You could argue similar skill set, but also I looked that year that DJ Moore was a wide receiver 1. Fields missed 3 starts, and in 2 of those starts, Andy Dalton hammered targets to DJ Moore, and he exceeded 100 yards in those games. So, a decent percentage of his production came when Fields was on the sideline. I think the Jets want to be, kind of like the Chargers, a run-first defensive team. So, Justin Fields, if you're double covered, Garrett Wilson, name the other Jets wide receivers, Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, is he still there? So you're going to see a lot of double coverage for Garrett Wilson. So that obviously he'll be the first read, and then Justin Fields is either going to throw the ball to Mason Taylor or he's going to take off running. So
he's going to take off.
Still love the talent of Garrett Wilson, but I'll be a little bit lower than him. I'll be lower on Terry McLaurin even before the news that just broke earlier today that he's now fully demanding a trade. Don't see a repeat of the touchdown numbers from McLaurin. I think he's outside of wide receiver 20 range.
That's so
Flowers is one more guy in that range that I'm a little lower on. I don't I don't see Lamar Jackson being able to duplicate last year's crazy red zone touchdown production. That's not, something that is repeatable. And that said, even with Lamar Jackson throwing like something like half of his red zone attempts all went for touchdown, which is crazy, insane, production. Zay Flowers only had 4 touchdowns. So he's not, there's not a lot of ceiling there. And, you've got DeAndre Hopkins in town to potentially siphon targets. That said, I'm going to be a lot lower than, we'll go a little further down. I'm going to be a lot lower on Rashad Bateman, because you talk about a guy that's, just like James Cook, touchdown regression coming for Bateman.
Yeah. Interesting about Garrett Wilson, because I love Garrett Wilson, the talent. Last year finished 101 catches, 1,100 yards, seven touchdowns. 6 games without Devontae Adams in the lineup, he saw 29.8% target share. With Adams, he saw 22.8%. So I think if he gets a 29% target share or close to that with Justin Fields, here's the other thing too. I end up with a lot of Garrett Wilson because I like Justin Fields as a fantasy quarterback, so I generally will stack them. But I just feel like, again, their defense isn't good. They're going to have to play catch up. And I just think he's going to get so many targets there. And I think it's all baked in, Jody. I realize he's not. I don't think you're saying he's horribly overpriced, but I feel like that's all baked in. His wide receiver, I don't know where's he go.
Because he was top 10 last year. And keep in mind, what I just said. I just drafted us a stack of Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields in an FSGA draft. That's it. It just happened to, in that particular draft, he fell to where I thought, okay, I can definitely click the button here, and I think I got us Jameson Williams as the wide receiver 3 in that draft. So I'm loving that right now.
Yeah, there you go. So Garrett Wilson, you can get the 3rd round of some of these drafts when receivers are going heavy. So it's I really like. I think it's all baked in there. But yeah, there's just so many receivers to talk about. Just some kind of random thoughts. I like Deebo Samuel, especially in best ball. I think he went to
warm up to him.
I think he went to the best team he could have. Outside
and what if they trade Terry McLaurin?
And if they trade, my God.
One.
That's right, for sure. So the Rashid Shaheeds, and kind of to go about your Terry McLaurin point, you're like the 10th analyst that I've heard say the same thing about Terry McLaurin, but his ADP just doesn't drop. He still stays high. I don't have, because I think you guys are all right. But it's just until the ADP drops, you can't even really touch him. But yeah, so I think guys that are rising, I really like Trey Harris, Emeka Egbuka, that Chris Godwin situation is, I think, a problem there for Godwin. I think you could draft Egbuka and have him. I think Godwin starts on the pup for sure, and you could have him. He could be awesome the first 4 to 6
shame, because I remember us talking last year at this time how much I loved Chris Godwin, and man, that was fun. Week through week 7, man, it was great.
Oh, dude, so gross, so stinking gross. But yeah, no. So I think it's a good rundown of the receivers. Obviously things are going to change, trades, health. Stuff like that. And there's always guys, you find 1 or 2 guys early on in the season that pop week 1 or 2 and end up being a thing for the rest of the year. So, we obviously got to pay attention to the news and who kind of quarterbacks are targeting and stuff like that. And it's going to be a fun year at the FFWC for drafted receivers. And don't forget, guys and girls, FFWC tonight, we got the Superflex Bowl drafts. We've got the mid stakes going, the 350 to win that 5-figure prize, and then we also have so that's the Circle of Las Vegas. And then we also have the World Championship drafts that are popping up. So go to Play FullTime Fantasy and jump into those. Those are filling up quickly. So, Jody, have fun. When's the expo? Is that next weekend?
No, Wednesday is my birthday, and then I get to wake up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning the very next day and fly to.
There you go.
And
so it's Thursday, yeah, okay.
So yes, it's Thursday through, and I'm leaving Sunday this year. I'm not staying to Monday, so I'll miss karaoke night.
Oh, karaoke! I know you're a big karaoke guy. Good for you.
I am. We're going to do that this weekend over here.
Yeah, there you go. All right, cool, dude. Well, thanks for joining me. And hey, when you get back, we'll do maybe a quarterback tight end episode, And we'll get guys. We're going to get some live streams going to these drafts. We got another live stream coming in a couple weeks for a draft. I'm trying to convince everyone to let me do a live stream of a world championship. Everybody hates it because they don't want to show the picks and stuff, but that's fun stuff. Getting a live world championship, $2,000 to win a 6-figure prize. So I definitely want to get a couple of those going. And we got a Grind Time 3 coming up, I think on the 7th. It's a Sunday, maybe this is the 17th. So tune in for those guys. And Jody, thanks for joining me. And thanks everybody for getting in the chat.
Thanks, Dad.
You got it. We'll see you guys.